Greetings. Welcome to Anime Octopus. You are invited to explore the latest installment of our fanfic series. What if Sasuke made Naruko pregnant? Part 3. Disclaimer: the content presented on this channel is intended solely for entertainment and discussion purposes. I do not own the anime footage featured in my videos. All rights and credits belong to their respective creators and copyright holders. Let us begin. Sasuke. Cease this at once. What can he offer you that Konoha cannot? Naruto implored, struggling to maintain her footing on the water's surface. Sasuke looked down at her from atop one of the stone statues, resembling Uchiha Madara. His eyes were devoid of any discernible emotion, their coldness reminiscent of voids. For the first time, Naruto felt a profound fear towards her closest friend, a stark contrast to her experiences even after the Uchiha massacre. Power, Sasuke declared. Naruto gasped, her eyes widening as her irises and pupils seemed to constrict in shock. Neji was right, he is truly lost in his own darkness, she thought, lowering her head and clenching her fists. Power? She retorted. What about me? What about Team 7? She looked up at Sasuke, her voice tinged with pain and anger. What am I to you now? We're comrades. You're my best friend. Have you forgotten that, Sasuke, or do you simply not care? Sasuke closed his eyes, a hint of remorse crossing his face at the anguish in Naruto's voice. No, he said softly, though his words were clear. For years, I sought to distance myself from you, yet despite everything, you have remained my closest friend. When Sasuke reopened his eyes, Naruto was only slightly surprised to see the blood-red Sharingan glaring back at her. Because of that, he continued, you have and will always remain closest to my heart. Naruto trembled, both frightened and touched. The confession made her heart ache even more deeply. He had never explicitly stated before that she was his best friend. I don't understand. Why are we fighting? I don't want to fight you, Sasuke. Sasuke responded with a bitter laugh. It is too late. I told you, you are my best friend. It is because of this that I must end your life. What? Naruto thought, her eyes widening further as her knees buckled. Gritting her teeth, she glared at him with renewed resolve. She was determined to bring him back, even if it meant shattering both their bodies in the process. Mizu no Kuni, January 27. Sasuke traversed Mizu no Kuni, water country, the last known location of his beloved. Though months had passed, he had limited time to spare. He was not imprisoned in the Sound Village, but prolonged absence could provoke Orochimaru's paranoia and, frankly, his ire. The last thing Sasuke needed was for the Sannin to send someone after him, only to find him in the company of Naruto. He was uncertain of Orochimaru's perception of his feelings towards Naruto, but it was clear that it contrasted sharply with the reality. Their relationship had often seemed more akin to rivalry than friendship or anything more intimate. Yet, he struggled to define their bond beyond that of lovers. Were they in a committed relationship, something his fangirls would certainly disapprove of? Or was it merely a fleeting indulgence, though that notion felt fundamentally incorrect? Sasuke knew their connection was far from superficial. He had often envisioned a future where he would find a partner, marry, and restore his clan. In all these dreams, Naruto was the first and only person who came to mind. However, given his status as a traitor to both his team and Konoha, the possibility of redemption seemed slim. The shinobi world was notorious for its lack of second chances, often meted out with severe consequences, including execution. Despite his reflections, he had come to Mizu no Kuni, knowing that she had likely moved on by now. It had been months since their last encounter, and Naruto was known for not staying in one place for more than 2 weeks. He admitted to himself that he was beginning to lose his sanity without their clandestine meetings. A young blonde girl, you say? Inquired a local fisherman. I do recall seeing such a person. She was quite young, accompanied by an older man with long white hair, evidently a ninja. They rented a boat, mentioning something about heading towards Nami no Kuni after visiting the girl's ancestral lands. Ancestral lands, Sasuke murmured, contemplating the significance of the man's words. The old fisher seemed to take it for a question and nodded. Yes, he said. If I had to guess, I'd say they were heading for old Uzu no Kuni. The old man nodded again. The girl reminded me of a noble, and the island itself, if I recall, was owned by a family called Uzumaki, which is the name given on the forms to rent the boat. What did you say her name was again, boy? Sasuke twitched at the man's words, though his annoyance was more directed at the interruption of his thoughts than the content. He was only vaguely acquainted with Naruto's family background, having learned little due to her being an orphan. However, she had shared some details during their journey to Snow Country, primarily about her mother. Naruto had explained that her mother, bearing the clan name Uzumaki, had come to Konoha from an allied land at the request of the first Hokage's wife when she was a child. Later, during the war, the land of Uzu no Kuni was devastated, and its shinobi village, Uzushio-gakure, was obliterated in a major conflict involving Kirigakure and Kumagakure. Naruto, Uzumaki Naruto, he replied, seeing no reason to withhold the information. Unusual name for a girl, the man remarked with a shrug. Anyway, if you need a boat, I can arrange one for you. It will, of course, require payment. Sasuke sighed in resignation. Fine, how much, old man? The cost was inconsequential to him, as it was Sound Village's money anyway. Nami no Kuni, December 31st. Uchiha Madara was in a state of amusement, though such amusement was rarely a positive sign. This instance was no exception, as his satisfaction stemmed from a grim realization, one that would remain obscure to most for another 3 or 4 years. Madara had decided to seek out the Kyubi Jinchuriki after hearing a rumor among the elder citizens of Mizu no Kuni about a girl named Uzumaki. The Water Country was one of the few regions that remembered the once prosperous Uzumaki clan. Despite the destruction of Uzu no Kuni by Kirigakure and Kumagakure, the Uzumaki's former prominence had left a lasting impression, with Uzushio having been a key player in numerous national affairs before its downfall. Madara might have subtly influenced Kirigakure and Kumagakure's aggression, driven by a petty desire for revenge against Mito for imprisoning his pet within herself. Of course, he would never admit to such motives. There were still a few civilian survivors from Uzu no Kuni scattered across the nations, some in Water Country, and a handful, if any, remaining in Nami no Kuni. Madara was aware of several prominent clans, referred to by other nations as royal clans for lack of a better term, that had survived. The Uzumaki clan had been nearly exterminated. Besides Uzumaki Naruto, he knew of 1 or 2 other individuals with Uzumaki blood ties. The Himura clan, possessing the intriguing Shadow Walk, Shado Uoku, bloodline, was among them. This ability, while similar to the Nara clan's shadow techniques, was unique as it granted complete control over shadows through their bloodline. It was unfortunate that the Himura clan had been annihilated without any survivors. In contrast, the Namaki clan, though lacking a bloodline, was renowned for their superior kenjutsu skills and weaponry. As far as Madara knew, only a few members remained, including one who had a child and had sought refuge in Konoha. The family name had been changed from Namaki to protect them from potential threats. A son who later wed a kunoichi from Konoha and fathered a daughter. He speculated her name might be Higurashi Tenten. The Namaki clan had never been his primary concern, though he acknowledged the adage that knowledge equates to power. The Honda clan, on the other hand, presented more intrigue. As one of Uzushio's bloodline clans, the Honda possessed the Shoten, crystal release, ability. Among the survivors, he was aware of a girl named Guren residing in Otogakure. The Yuki clan, he recalled, was no longer extant, save for one girl who survived Uzushio's downfall. She had fled to the Water Country, where she married and had a son, Haku. The son, and with him the Hyotan, ice release, bloodline, had perished. The Shirai clan was the final significant clan of Uzushio, known for their Sheikuten, flame release. This was a noteworthy bloodline in a land where fire was rare compared to lightning, water, and wind. The Shirai clan's lineage seemed to have ended with a girl named Pakura from Suna. Although there had been other survivors, none were known to be alive. He realized he was digressing. The Uzumaki girl was the primary concern now. When he had discovered her in Nami no Kuni, he was taken aback to find her heavily pregnant. From his observations, the father was his distant descendant, Uchiha Sasuke. The situation was amusing, though it was not surprising. The Uzumaki had always intrigued the Uchiha, though none had ever formed lasting unions. The prospect of Uzumaki and Uchiha blood mingling was particularly fascinating. The Uzumaki were renowned for their immense chakra, vitality, and longevity, often living several hundred years. Despite their frequent demise in battle, their resilience was notable. The combination with Uchiha bloodline would undoubtedly be compelling. This presented a prime opportunity to capture the Kyuubi, but there was ample time for that. His current interest lay in observing how his descendant and Mito's great-great-niece would evolve. As he gazed at the night sky, Madara noted the blue moon. How ironic, he mused. The moon seemed fitting for the occasion. His attention shifted towards the house where the Jinchuriki resided with a family of bridge builders. As he felt the pressure of the Kyuubi's chakra struggling to break free, he commented, December 31st. Rising, he concluded there was no purpose in lingering to witness the birth. An intriguing birthday, impatience must be an inherited trait of the Uzumaki. Though he acknowledged the Uchiha's own impatience, Madara would never concede it openly. In a fleeting moment, Uchiha Madara vanished. Naruto cried out in pain as she lay in bed, surrounded by Tsunami and Jiraiya. A doctor had been called, but given the late hour, it would be some time before they arrived. Fortunately, Tsunami was skilled in delivering babies, and Jiraiya was focused on maintaining the integrity of Naruto's seal. The seal, though stronger than her mother's, still caused significant discomfort, amplifying the contractions and labor pains. On the positive side, Naruto's labor progressed more quickly, though she had been experiencing contractions for hours before fully realizing it. Initially, she had suspected that she had simply eaten something disagreeable until her water broke 15 minutes ago. Damn it, I'm going to strangle Sasuke. She shouted, clenching her fists by her sides. It feels like someone is trying to drive a chidori through me. Jiraiya grimaced at her words. There's something quite alarming about what you just said, Naru-chan, he said, glancing anxiously at Tsunami, who was positioned between Naruto's legs as she pushed. Trying to suppress his reaction to the sight of a small black-haired head emerging, Jiraiya nearly withdrew his hand from the seal and felt an overwhelming urge to vomit. The scene was etched into his mind, leaving him deeply unsettled. Uro-senin. Naruto growled, delivering a firm punch to the side of his head. Focus on the seal, ah. The intensity of her scream made his ears ring, but Tsunami's encouraging words broke through. The head is almost out, Naru-chan, she said with a reassuring smile. Naruto managed a smile in return, though she groaned in response. That's great, but now I have to get the other one out. God, I'm going to castrate Sasuke, she grumbled as she pushed again. Ah. This child had to inherit his father's large head. Jiraiya winced as red chakra flared against his hand. No, bad Kyuubi, stay put. He snapped, struggling to keep the seal secure as the chakra receded. Another 10 minutes passed, and Naruto reclined against the headboard, breathing heavily. Her stomach had visibly flattened. The doctor, having arrived just as the first baby, a boy, was born, was now cleaning up the twins with Tsunami. You did well, brat, Jiraiya said, sitting beside her in a chair. Naruto smiled as the doctor and Tsunami approached with 2 bundles. Both infants were wrapped in dark blue blankets, each adorned with the Uchiha fan on the back and the orange-red spiral of the Uzumaki symbol in a smaller size on the left corner. Though Tsunami had primarily crafted the blankets, Naruto had contributed by helping to knit the symbols into the fabric. One blanket was lined with white, and the other with dark pink, to differentiate between the twins. As the babies were placed in her arms, Naruto grinned and chuckled. Congratulations, Naru. It's a boy and a girl, Tsunami said with a happy smile. The infant's features were unmistakably Uchiha, yet slightly softer and less sharp than Sasuke's. The little boy, with his spiky dark hair, resembled his father closely, showing traits reminiscent of both Naruto's and Sasuke's lineage. Both babies had the pale skin characteristic of the Uchiha clan. Both infants bore the same whisker marks as their mother, a phenomenon that, while surprising, was not entirely unexpected. Typically, children born to a Jinchuriki inherit such markings from the Bijou. While many attributed these marks to the presence of the Kyubi, they were actually present from birth due to the mother's own status as a Jinchuriki. It was understood that this inheritance was not guaranteed. Statistically, there was a 40% chance that any offspring would have these markings, irrespective of the parent's Jinchuriki status. Historical records indicated that Mito Uzumaki, a previous Jinchuriki, had a son who lacked these marks, whereas her daughter did not. Senju Narumi, Mito's daughter, perished during a mission at the age of 18 and did not have children of her own. This daughter was named in her honor, though the exact familial relation was somewhat unclear, whether second cousin or third. The infant girl displayed softer features, yet her Uchiha lineage was unmistakable. As twins, their resemblance was evident, aside from their gender differences. The girl's hair exhibited a faint blue hue, a detail that was intriguing. This could be attributed to a blend of her mother's blonde hair with red highlights and her father's black hair, though such a mix would not typically produce blue. Alternatively, the trait might stem from the Uchiha side of the family, given that Sasuke's hair occasionally displayed a bluish tint. Both of them yawned and opened their eyes, revealing a surprising sight. The boy had eyes resembling Sasuke's, a deep onyx that she had always admired. The girl's blue eyes differed slightly from hers, not quite matching the same cerulean hue, yet they presented a striking contrast against her pale skin and dark hair. "It's expected they would resemble their father," she remarked with a smile. "They are truly beautiful," Tsunami agreed. "They are," Naruto affirmed, a single tear of joy escaping her. "Hello, little ones." Jiraiya chuckled softly. "Her eyes," he observed, "they remind me of your mother's, though lighter, significantly lighter, but still within that same violet-blue spectrum." "Wani-chan!" Inari exclaimed, entering with Tazuna after receiving the doctor's approval. "What are they?" Naruto laughed as Inari jumped onto the large bed beside her, gazing in awe at the two small infants. Despite being born a few weeks premature, the babies appeared healthy, though she wasn't entirely surprised. Uchiha children often arrived either right on time or fashionably early. "It's a boy and a girl," she explained. "The one with the dark eyes is the boy, and the one with the blue eyes is the girl. The boy is 3 minutes older than the girl." Inari smiled. "What are their names?" Tazuna, taking a sip of sake despite Tsunami's disapproving glance, asked, "What did you name them?" "It took me some time to decide," Naruto began, "but I've chosen. The boy is Uchiha Kyoshi, and the girl is Uchiha Nariko." Jiraiya smiled with amusement. "Quiet and thunder," he said, chuckling. "If their personalities reflect their names, you might find yourself with quite a handful." Naruto rolled her eyes playfully. "Perhaps, but those are their names," she said, as the two babies gazed up at her with what seemed like contentment. Nearly a month had elapsed since the blue moon night and the birth of her children. A blue moon, a rare phenomenon, was an unusual time for a birth, occurring infrequently, sometimes not even annually. She found herself chuckling at the coincidence, reflecting on how it seemed fittingly Uchiha-like to be born under such a celestial event. Although Jiraiya's recollection suggested her own birth had occurred during a full moon, this did not concern Naruto much. She wasn't inclined to place significant weight on symbolic dates or lunar cycles. Yet, amidst her musings, she was simply relieved to be free from the agony of childbirth. Naruto had determined that remaining in Wave for a while was prudent, at least until the twins grew older and she and Jiraiya could establish their next course of action. With two infants in tow, they needed to be mindful of their movements and the attention they attracted. A part of her longed to visit Suna. She had resolved months ago to pose an important question to Gaara. Upon returning to Konoha, she intended to ask Hinata, Sakura, and Kakashi the same question. Initially, she had considered approaching Tsunade, but she believed the Hokage might prefer the role of grandmother over that of a godmother. Additionally, given her age, the likelihood of Tsunade being able to care for the children if anything happened to her or Sasuke seemed slim. After all, the Sandaime had been limited in his capacity to support her due to his extensive responsibilities as Hokage. The nature of the question was straightforward. She wished to ask if they would become Kiyoshi and Naruko's godparents. Though she was uncertain about the allowance of having two sets of godparents, one for each twin, she was determined to proceed with her plan. In the event of unforeseen circumstances, she suspected that the individuals involved would make decisions based on their resources and ability to care for the twins, likely choosing not to separate them. This was all a precautionary measure, given Gaara's location in Suna and the presence of Hinata, Sakura, and Kakashi in Konoha. It was a strategy designed to prepare for the worst-case scenario, ensuring she was prepared for any eventuality. The twins themselves were growing so quickly, at least in her eyes. She was always happy to be with them, and even if they were yet to be a complete family, it was a start. Someday she had hoped Sasuke would return with her to Konoha and they'd be a true family. Part of her feared a possible rejection, especially given that they had not planned on becoming parents at such a young age. They had not made any concrete plans, as she was uncertain about their relationship status. She was aware of her feelings for him but was unsure of his feelings towards her, at least at this moment. Uro-sennin often remarked that she was overly concerned. He doubted the Uchiha would reject her, given that if he had no feelings, he would have eliminated her at the Valley of the End months earlier. Although she wanted to believe this, Sasuke remained an enigma even to her. On a different note, nearly 2 weeks after the birth of the twins, she resumed physical training. This task proved challenging, as she also had to care for her children. Fortunately, she was quickly establishing a routine to balance her training with caring for Kyo-chan and Nari-chan, the nicknames she had given the twins. She would either have them with her, watched over by one of her shadow clones while she trained, or take care of them while creating numerous shadow clones to assist with her training. The drawback of using shadow clones was that they did not contribute to physical conditioning, such as muscle building or speed. They only provided experience and knowledge after dispelling. Thus, she needed to focus on physical aspects of training independently. Fortunately, Tsunami was available to look after the twins, which Naruto initially hesitated to request. However, Tsunami had grown fond of the children she had helped deliver. Viewing Naruto as a daughter, Tsunami considered herself a grandmother to the twins, a role Naruto was more than happy to endorse. Tsunami was surprised by Naruto's rapid recovery following the birth of Kiyoshi and Naruko. The Uzumaki healing factor, combined with her status as the Kyuubi Jinchuriki, reduced what might have been a month-long recovery period to nearly 2 weeks. In the 5 weeks since the twins' birth, Naruto hardly appeared to have recently given birth, though she had not fully shed all of her pregnancy weight. Tazuna, Tsunami, and Inari had all become very attached to the twins, and Naruto greatly appreciated Tsunami's assistance when she was unsure of the twins' needs. At present, she was completing her midday training with Jiraiya. Her hair was styled in a long, low ponytail secured with a white ribbon, with her bangs framing her face and a small blue hair clip holding one side in place. She wore a short-sleeved, black kimono that transitioned into a dark orange-red hue around her knees, with slits along the sides extending past her mid-thighs. Underneath, she wore a mesh armor long-sleeve shirt visible through the low-cut neckline and extending just past her wrists. The kimono skirt concealed mesh shorts ending a few inches above her knees, briefly visible when she moved. A dark blue sash was tied around her waist, forming a loose bow at the back with free ends that stopped just above her knees. Her attire was completed with standard shinobi sandals, which were more akin to boots reaching up to her shins with a minimal heel. Naruto stood at barely 5 feet 2 inches, a notable increase from the 4 feet 11 inches she had been 2 years prior when she first became a Genin. This realization highlighted that it had been a year since her return to Konoha and 2 years since she, Sakura, and Sasuke formed Team 7. Her ensemble was completed by the standard spiral of her clan, a larger orange-red spiral on the back of her kimono and a white clan spiral on the left sleeve at her shoulder. This was similar to the white spiral on the orange and blue jacket she had worn since childhood but rarely used now. The jacket was now too small and too brightly colored, making it impractical for mission use. Although Naruto had a fondness for orange, she understood the risks of wearing too much of it during missions. Training and leisure time were different matters, and she had moved beyond the need to draw attention with garish colors, preferring a more subdued palette. On her forehead was her Hittite 8, though the originally blue fabric had been replaced with black after she departed with Jiraiya for their training journey. Around her neck, she wore another Hittite 8, this one adorned with a spiral symbol representing both her clan and Uzushio, set against a dark violet blue fabric. She had discovered this particular Hittite 8 during their stay at her ancestral home in Uzushio and surmised it belonged to her mother, as it had been found in her room. The identification was straightforward, given that the rooms were labeled with metal plaques bearing names written in kanji. The only rooms without plaques were the guest rooms and the master bedroom. Despite her mother never having been a kunoichi of Uzushio, it was clear that the village had regarded her as one, given that they had left a Hittite 8 in her room, presumably for her visits. With Uzushio no longer in existence, Uro Sennin had not objected to her wearing the symbol of her mother's village. Even if Uzushio were still extant, it would remain her prerogative as the Uzumaki heir to don the symbol, despite her affiliation with Konoha. The primary reason for the new wardrobe and departure from her previous orange and black attire was that it no longer fit. Due to a slight increase in height, the ongoing loss of baby weight through rigorous training, and the increase in breast size, an expected change during pregnancy intended to accommodate breastfeeding, she needed a new wardrobe. According to Tsunade, these changes might not fully revert to their pre-pregnancy size, though they would eventually decrease. Naruto was grateful that she had preserved a few outfits from her clan's home. Despite the destruction there, she saw no need to purchase new clothes when she could utilize her inherited garments. "You've improved significantly with the Hiraishin technique," Jiraiya remarked, prompting a faint smile from Naruto. As she stood, she picked up the three-pronged kunai, dusted off her kimono, and tucked a stray strand of her long hair behind her ear. "I believe I need to enhance my natural speed," she said with a slight shrug. "The disorienting effect is manageable but could pose a liability in combat. I suspect this is because the Hiraishin operates at such a high velocity that it is nearly imperceptible to the naked eye and challenging for the human body to keep pace with, as it approaches the speed of light. Unless I improve my speed, I will struggle to maintain my awareness and vision upon reappearing." Jiraiya's expression softened into what Naruto interpreted as pride, and he applauded. "I was waiting for you to realize that. Your father faced similar challenges, though his speed had developed further by the time he utilized it in the war. This was also why your mother never fully mastered the technique. Had she lived longer, she likely would have." Naruto nodded, running a hand through the ponytail resting over her left shoulder, a comforting habit she resorted to when feeling restless or simply needing something to occupy her hands. "That's enough for today," Jiraiya said, glancing at the bright afternoon sun. "Tsunade is approaching with your children." Looking over, Naruto confirmed her sensei's observation. Tsunade was indeed heading towards them, with the twins in a baby sling and an additional sling for other items. "I wish you wouldn't call them that," Naruto said, rolling her eyes. "Kyubi has been echoing the same sentiment for months." Jiraiya raised an inquisitive eyebrow. "Oh, has he been contacting you frequently?" Naruto chuckled. "Not exactly. The simplest way to access the seal is through meditation. I meditate occasionally, and he tends to rant during these sessions. Since the twins' birth, the space he occupies has expanded, so he's been more active lately." Jiraiya nodded in understanding. "Naru-chan, Jiraiya-sama, it seems you both have been working diligently," Tsunade said as she approached, coming to a stop just a short distance away. Naruto's face lit up with joy at the sight of her raven-haired children. The hours of separation had been challenging, and while she was unsure if this was a universal experience for new mothers, she knew it was for her. During her initial week back to training, Naruto found it challenging to concentrate solely on her exercises, as her thoughts often drifted to Kyoshi and Nariko. Even after several weeks, maintaining focus remained difficult. Tsunami handed her an additional sling, designed to carry one baby on her back and the other on her chest. As Naruto secured the sling, Tsunami remarked, "I believe Kyo-chan and Nari-chan have missed you, Naruto?" The blonde teenager, whom Tsunami regarded as a daughter, gently lifted Kyoshi and cradled him to her chest. Naruto smiled warmly. "I miss them as well," she responded, placing Kyoshi in the front of the sling before accepting Naruko from Tsunami. Although positioning Naruko on her back while Kyoshi was already in place proved somewhat challenging, Naruto managed to soothe Naruko with tender cooing. "I trust they haven't been too troublesome. If they inherit their father's traits, they may be quite stubborn," she said. Jiraiya, overhearing, chuckled. "They've got a double dose of stubbornness, brat. You're the most obstinate person I know, aside from your parents," he remarked. Naruto pouted slightly as Tsunami assisted her in securing Naruko comfortably on her back. "They've been no trouble," Tsunami assured her. "I enjoyed their company. It's been quite some time since Inari was their age." "Thank you," Naruto said with a grateful smile. "I plan to introduce them to a couple of old acquaintances today. It's nearby, so it's an ideal opportunity." Jiraiya looked puzzled. "Who are you referring to, kid?" Naruto's smile turned wistful as she replied, "Zabuza and Haku." She recalled them more vividly than anyone she had met outside the village, aside from Inari and his family, her extended family, as she considered them. She had contemplated naming Kyoshi Kohaku in honor of Haku, but upon seeing her son, she realized the name did not fit him. The same applied to Naruko, though she would reserve the name for future use, as she had always desired a large family after growing up with so little. "Ah, those missing nin from your first C-rank mission?" Jiraiya inquired. Naruto nodded. "Their graves are not far from here. I will return to the house within the hour," she said, allowing herself ample time to avoid causing any concern. She had not intended to stay long, merely 10 or 15 minutes, but she also thought it would be pleasant to visit a small meadow near the sea that she had discovered while exploring Nami no Kuni in the village. Although they were young, she did not want the twins to see only the house, village, and surrounding woods. She herself would quickly become bored with that. While they might not remember, she recalled her own childhood, confined to the interior of Konoha and the forest beyond. Tsunami and Jiraiya nodded in agreement and departed in one direction, while she proceeded in another. What she encountered at the gravesite was entirely unexpected: Sasuke. His journey to Nami no Kuni had been longer than anticipated, much to his frustration. Upon arrival, he sought out a place to rest briefly before making his way to a location he had not visited in some time, the graves of Zabuza and Haku. It felt as though it had been only yesterday when he had stood at this very site, wanting to comfort Naruto but finding himself unable to do so, not solely due to his pride. He had not formed a personal attachment to the two missing nin, unlike Naruto, who seemed to forge bonds effortlessly. The sunny blonde had a unique ability to influence others, drawing out their best qualities. She had begun to affect him in a similar manner long before he had fully realized it. The term ambivalent came to mind, a word seldom used but aptly describing his feelings. While it might not fit him perfectly, it was a term he remembered from somewhere. Sasuke. Sasuke stiffened momentarily as he heard a nearly husky voice call his name from behind him. He managed a faint, almost imperceptible smile. "Dobi," he replied, turning to face the person he knew would be there. The first thing he noticed were her striking blue eyes, more radiant than the sky in his opinion. Her sun-kissed skin and silky, sunset blonde hair were gathered in a low ponytail draped over her left shoulder. She was dressed in a new outfit, likely due to a recent growth spurt, as evidenced by the slight increase in her bust size. She wore a battle kimono of sorts, with mesh armor and a short skirt split up the sides to facilitate movement. A dark blue sash cinched her waist, and the kimono itself was a deep black that took on a dark purple hue in the light, blending into a fiery orange-red near the knee area. On one shoulder, he noticed the white spiral symbol of her clan, mirrored by a similar orange-red emblem on the back of the kimono. The ensemble suited her well. It was only moments later that his gaze fell upon an unexpected detail. An off-white sling draped across her chest was not empty, it held a significant lump. As he peered closer, he glimpsed pale skin and raven hair, features visible over her shoulder. Babies. 2 infants, one with raven hair and what appeared to be dark eyes, and the other with a hint of blue. Both seemed to have whisker marks on their cheeks. His mind struggled to process the revelation. Naruto. He began slowly, his voice trailing off. How? When? He felt faint for a moment, but shook it away. He was an Uchiha. Uchiha did not faint, even if they did suspect the women they loved to have had their children without them realizing it. Naruto smiled softly, yet slowly, and began walking closer. As she got closer he saw the babies more closely, and realized there was no way they were anything but Naruto's. No one had those whisker marks other than her. Well, when a male and female love each other very much, or are simply into one another, they decide to have sex. And sometimes the male and female forget basic sex education and Sasuke sent the blonde a glare which held no anger or any emotion other than to let her know not to be stupid. "Dobi, I know how babies are made," he said. He shifted his gaze from her laughing blue eyes to the baby resting on her chest and the other on her back, peering at him with bright, light violet blue eyes. Although not the exact shade of Naruto's eyes, they were still distinctly blue. He surmised that these traits must have been inherited from one of her parents, though he was unfamiliar with their identities or appearances. As he observed, he felt a flutter in his stomach and a tightness in his chest, a mix of emotions so intense that he struggled to discern where one feeling ended and another began. "I'm sorry, but it was too tempting to pass up," she said. "How did you find me?" He smirked. "You mentioned you were heading to water country. I simply made some inquiries and eventually found a lead. I didn't expect to find you here, I thought you would have moved on by now." Naruto nodded, then ran a hand through the baby's onyx hair. He found it a breathtaking sight, and his breath caught in his throat. "Well, I couldn't travel far," she replied. "Why didn't you tell me, Naruto?" he asked suddenly, almost regretting it when he saw her eyes well up. "I wanted to, but I didn't realize until I was already in Mizu no Kuni. I'm fairly certain I conceived in May," she began. "May? But they don't look as though they were born too recently." "They appear to be at least a month old," Sasuke interjected, trying to piece together their birth timeline. He was still stunned. He hadn't anticipated that their time together might result in twins, though in retrospect, he should have. He had assumed she was using birth control like many kunoichi of their age. He had even found it in her bag during a mission, a discovery that had been awkward but thankfully unnoticed by others. Despite his shock, he was neither upset nor displeased. Beneath the happiness and curiosity, he felt a pang of fear of being an inadequate father and of history repeating itself. He had wanted to restore his clan, but not until Itachi was gone. They were born on December 31st, a few weeks early, Naruto said, pulling him from his thoughts. "It's not uncommon for twins to arrive early." Sasuke nodded and hesitated before reaching out, stopping just short of touching the soft hair of the baby with onyx eyes. He heard Naruto giggle, an uncommon sound for her. "Don't be shy, Sasuke," she said, smiling brightly. She guided his hand gently to the baby's head, her hand covering his. "See, it's fine," she reassured him. Sasuke frowned momentarily, then allowed a genuine smile to appear. "I'm sorry I didn't try to find you or inform you. I hadn't planned to tell you until they were older, but I was afraid. I don't even know what we are or what we're doing. I have enemies who might use them against me, particularly Akatsuki and Orochimaru." Looking up, Sasuke noticed Naruto was on the verge of tears. Orochimaru is obsessed with the Sharingan. If he senses even a hint that they might awaken it, he'll want them too. I've already lost you, I can't bear to lose them too. Sasuke removed his hand from the baby's head and cupped Naruto's cheek, understanding her fear. While it hurt that she had kept him in the dark for so long, he understood her reasoning. The fewer people who knew, the safer it was. He also recognized the threat Orochimaru posed. At that moment, he questioned who was more dangerous to his children, Itachi or Orochimaru. The realization made him regret leaving Konoha more than ever. However, if he hadn't left, he wondered if the twins would have been born. He knew he would have loved Naruto regardless, but would the twins have come into the world? Perhaps, he thought. "You haven't lost me, Naruto," he said gently, his voice softer than she had heard since before the massacre. "I would return with you now if it wouldn't attract Orochimaru's attention. It's better for me to continue with my mission and, once I have sufficient power, to defeat him myself. Then I will confront Itachi. After my brother is gone, I'll come home and face the consequences of my departure." Naruto blinked, struggling to hold back her tears at his words. They were bittersweet and entailed a long wait. "Do you promise?" she asked. Sasuke reached into his shirt and produced a silver chain necklace with a small Uchiha fan pendant. "I promise," he said, his voice wavering with emotion. "I love you, Uzumaki Naruto. This necklace will be my vow." Naruto's eyes widened as she stared at the man before her. She had never heard him express those words, not since before the massacre, and she never expected them to be directed at her. Her heart swelled with joy, and she smiled. "I love you too," she replied, allowing Sasuke to fasten the necklace around her neck. "What are their names?" he asked, and Naruto mentally berated herself for not mentioning them earlier. "Uchiha Kyoshi is the eldest and the one resting on my chest," she explained with a proud smile. "Uchiha Naruko is the one on my back." Sasuke surprised her once more with a smile, not the reserved Uchiha expression but a full-fledged grin. Naruto, discerning Sasuke's unspoken apprehension, gently removed Kyoshi from the sling. The sight of Sasuke's eyes widening as he held the alert baby, who bore a striking resemblance to him but with slightly spikier hair, caused her to burst into laughter. In that moment, she realized she was experiencing a happiness she hadn't felt since shortly after their first C-rank mission, before the trials of the Chunin exams. Though she understood this moment of family unity was fleeting, she cherished it deeply. My dear YouTube family. That's all for now. Please consider subscribing to my channel for more content. Sincerely, Anime Octopus.